Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
This the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Program.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF World Champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 184 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined as always by the elusive Mr. Ayaz Sumra. Ayaz, how you doing?
I'm good, Joey. Yourself?
Very good, my friend, very good. Let's dive straight into it. There is quite a bit to go over. We're going to start, of course, with a review part of the show. We're going to start at the Olympia in Liverpool, Merseyside, United Kingdom. Obviously a card that went under the radar a little bit here, and understandably so. A few names, though, to mention. Jazza Dickens picked up win number 26. He's got those 3 losses. A knockout in round 5 against a guy called Nasibu Ramadan. Quite clearly overmatched, now 27-14. with 2 draws, a TKO there in the 5th round. Jazza Dickens, friend of the show, of course. Also, we saw James Metcalf move to 19-0, a knockout in the 8th and final round against Santos Medrano, who's now 10-64 with 5 draws. Brian the Lion Rose, 31-5 now, with 1 draw. A points win over 6 against James Hagenimana, who's now 11 losses, 8 wins, 11 losses, like I say, and 1 draw. He was actually down in the first round, Hagenimana, but Brian the Lion Rose couldn't finish him, and again, that's another friend of the show. All the very best to Brian Rose. He's looking for that Scott Fitzgerald fight, if I'm not mistaken there. Moving out now, though, to the O2 Arena in Greenwich, London, United Kingdom. Ayaz, obviously the big card of the weekend, if you like. Could be telling a porky there. Certainly the biggest card in the UK anyway. Of course, the bigger ones, the pay-per-view ones, came a bit later on, came on the other side of the Atlantic. But let's start here with the undercard, Ayaz. Shannon Courtenay, the lady, the female boxer, she moves to 2-0, a points win over 4 rounds against Roz Silyanova, I think it said, who's now 1-5 with 1 draw. She was pulled in at late notice. Apparently she was really tough. I didn't see the fight. I think it may have been on Facebook Live or something. She didn't get any telly time this time round for her fight. But yeah, 2-0 now with 2 fights both going the distance there. Also on the bill, Conor Benn moved to 14-0, a points win over 8 against Joseph Zaradnik, who's now 10-3. Zaradnik wasn't a bad fighter. He could box a bit, actually. He was causing Conor Benn a couple of problems. Not nothing he couldn't handle. It was a good learning kind of fight, you'd say. He moves up the rankings, it would seem, with the WBA. Zaradnik was actually down in the 7th round also, but a good win there for Conor Benn. He banks the rounds once again. Derek Chisora, Ayaz, against Senad Gashi. I said it, I've been saying it ever since the fight got made. It could really be a stinker. I thought it would be, and it completely was. No one else said that apart from me. I'm getting quite cocky there, but I really saw a real boring fight there. That is Derek Chisora's 30th win. He's got the 9 losses, a unanimous decision there over 10 against Senad Gashi, who's now 17-3 inside 20 fights. Again, Senad Gashi's fights, I think 99% of them end before the final bell. There's always a knockout. It's either him going or he gets the opponent going. Absolutely no danger in that fight at all. It was real boring to watch. It was hard to not switch off, really. Josh Kelly against Prismslaw Ranowski, who was undefeated, 17-0 going in. He's got the 1 loss now. Josh Kelly picked up a unanimous decision over 10 rounds. It was for his WBA International welterweight strap. Ranowski was down in the second round and the 10th round. I think he was also given a count in round 9, if I'm not mistaken. A good performance there from Josh Kelly, Ayaz. He seemed to start off really well. I saw people online, giving it to him, saying that he's got to keep his hands up. It's just the way he's fighting, that type of guy. I mean, that guy only had 3 knockouts from his 17 wins. He wasn't a big puncher. He was able to take those risks with a guy like that. I think he's not a silly fighter, he's not a silly boxer. He's not a silly man at all. And as he moves up in levels and he starts fighting the punchers, of course he's not going to have his gloves down by his knees. But a good performance other than that, really, from Josh Kelly Ayaz.
Yeah, I mean, it's another great performance from Josh Kelly. Obviously, he's a rising star. And obviously, it's another learning fight for him. So, I mean, well done to Josh Kelly on the win.
For sure. He's now 9-0, like I say, perfect record. He's supposed to be fighting on that Joshua versus undercard. I'm hoping that there's going to be an announcement before we finish recording the show. I'm hoping that, we got an opponent there for Joshua. Perhaps as you're listening to this, it's already been decided. But as of right now, it is Joshua versus TBA, and he was supposed to be on that undercard, Josh Kelly, but I think he picked up a slight cut, perhaps, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was from like a head clash or something. So hopefully that's healed up in time and he can indeed get on that undercard. Let's move up the bill once again here. Let's now talk about Joe Cordina. He moved to 9-0. A brilliant performance here from him. I was really impressed. It was for the vacant British lightweight title and also for the Commonwealth strap, which of course Cordina had going into the fight. He took on Andy Townend, a man that can pose a threat. He can bang. 22-4 going in. A TKO though for Joe Cordina. He was the man with the class and he really put on a show, and he had Townend down 3 times in that 6th round, and the pace that he set was brilliant. It was pretty much a punch perfect performance really from Joe Cordina. Really impressive, and I tweeted it out as I saw the fight. I think it was just afterwards. I said Joe Cordina's a guy that turned over after those 2016 Olympics. He didn't really have the buzz around him. He's a Welsh fighter. He's not English, if you like. I don't really know if that makes much of a difference, but I know that some of the Welsh fighters like the Selbies and stuff like that, they really fail to have a massive fan base. But I'm not quite sure that's the same with him, but there is something about Welsh fighters. It's weird because Welsh fighters are some of the best we've ever had. Joe Kawasaki springs straight to mind, but the following that some of them lack is quite alarming. But Joe Cordina, obviously, he turned over. You've got the likes of Josh Kelly, you've got the likes of Anthony Fowler, you've got the likes of Buatsi, you've got the likes of who am I missing out there from that crop of Olympians? Akoli, those type of guys. They've got a lot of hype around them, whereas he doesn't really have that hype. No one's really talking about him outside of the ring. They're only talking about him on fight night. But listen, he's delivering, he's ticking all the boxes, and he, in my eyes, has got a real promising future. Moving up the card once again, and this time for the final time, it was Dave Allen, 16-4 with 2 draws, getting in against former world champion Lucas Brown, 28-1 going in. Of course, it was a big heavyweight fight. I said on last week's show a few things, and we're going to talk about it here. Lucas Brown, for me, he started the fight decently well. I gave him the first round. He was keeping it long. He wasn't letting the smaller man get on the inside. He had good jabs. Dave Allen failed to show any head movement at all. There was nothing really telling landed in that first round. A little bit of rare head movement from Lucas Brown. He's not famous for that either, but it was a clear Lucas Brown round in that first. In the second round, again, that left hook to the body from Allen seemed to be his key punch early on. On last week's show, Lucas Brown did actually say that the left hand to the body was one of Dave Allen's best shots, but again, I actually gave that second round to Lucas Brown. I think his uppercuts were landing time and time again. It was worrying actually seeing Dave Allen eat so many uppercuts that early on in the fight, but I don't think Lucas really had much conviction on his punches. I think he was trying to kind of just outpoint Dave really and not overexert himself and get tired. But a brilliant round there for Lucas Brown. And then, of course, in the third round, there it was. The left hook to the body, right in the sweet spot. Brilliantly timed it was. And as I said on last week's show, the loser does find themselves in a very difficult position. I know that Lucas has pretty much said that there's no way he's going to retire. I think someone said, are you gonna retire or something like that? I think he responded by saying just a load of bleep, bleep, bleep. I'm not going to swear, but he doesn't want to retire, Lucas Brown, despite losing that. But yeah, again, he certainly won the first 2 rounds for me. It is a bad loss, He did seem to be a class above Dave Allen in terms of the boxing skills and stuff like that, but he didn't really disgrace himself because of that. He won every round apart from that third round, and it was a body shot rather than a big brutal knockout, and a well-placed body shot is pretty much unrecoverable from some boxers really can't recover from it in the needed time, of course, and that was the case here. I guess he can come back. I mean, his days are definitely numbered, and I don't really want to see him in any big fights. I think that is it. I stand by what I said. I think, like I say, because it was early, because it was a body shot, because he won every round, he didn't really disgrace himself. But yeah, he probably can have one more big fight perhaps, but it's back to the drawing board for him. He really should have done better there, and the sheer factor, looking at it on paper, being stopped in the third round is a little bit embarrassing. As for Dave Allen, of course, it's his undoubtedly his biggest win. This win obviously bounces him into another big fight, you'd guess. For me, I'd like the David Price fight for him. I think it's the right kind of fight, and you've got to mention that he actually knocked Lucas Brown out in half the time Dillian White did, so that's a little factoid to throw out there for the Dave Allen fan club that I'm sure are probably tuning into this week's show. Moving out now though to the Dignity Health Sports Park in Carson, California, USA. I'm just going to try and fly through this one. We got to see over here Andy Ruiz Jr., the forgotten man of the heavyweight division, a real top contender in my eyes. He picked up win number 32. He's got that one controversial loss to Joseph Parker on points. He took on Alexander Dimitrenko. Dimitrenko actually retired on his stall after 5 rounds. He didn't come out for round 6. Brandon Figueroa also had a similar situation. His opponent retired on his stall after 8 rounds. He didn't come out for round number 9. That was Yonfrez Parejo, now 22-4 with 1 draw. Brandon Figueroa 19-0, and that one was actually for the interim WBA World Super-Bantamweight title. So a good belt there for Figueroa. He's doing all the right things. Also on the bill we got to see, I should say, Danny Garcia. He was able to knock out Adrian Granados in 7 rounds. It was for the vacant WBC Silver Welterweight title. Granados was down twice in the 2nd and once in the 5th before being stopped, like I say, in the 7th. Danny Garcia now 35-2. A lot of people getting really hyped up after that win. He looked really good, Danny Garcia. Some people are even saying if he has the rematch with Porter, if he has the rematch with Furman, will he be able to win those fights? Will he be able to avenge those losses? I don't think so. I think Granados was a few levels below, a guy like Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia is an elite fighter. He really is. I'd like to see him fight Pacquiao, but yeah, there's still big fights for Danny Garcia out there for sure. Moving out now to the Rosecroft Raceway in Fort Washington, Maryland, USA. One fight to mention on this bill. Friend of the show, Dusty Hernandez Harrison, moved to 32-0 with 1 draw. He's got that minor blemish, the draw, but other than that, he's got one of the longest undefeated streaks in pro boxing. A knockout here in the 4th round against Fred Jenkins Jr., who's now 10-6. Bit overmatched there. Moving out to the final card to mention now, though, at the MSG in New York, USA, Ayaz. Let's start with the undercard, of course. We got to see Carlos Adames, 16-0, now 17-0. A good fighter, him. He's the guy with, I think, 45 siblings. His father is a very famous farmer in the Dominican Republic. He's known for a lot of things, of course. He fought for the vacant WBO, NABO Super Welterweight title and the NABF Super Welterweight title. He took on Frank Galarza. Frank Galarza, a guy with an interesting story, 20-2 with 2 draws. Galarza was down from a left hook in the 4th round, and that was it. He was TKO'd in that 4th round. A good win there for Adames. Also on the bill, we got to see Felix Verdejo, 24-1. He took on Brian Vasquez, 37-3. A win there for Verdejo over 10 rounds. A good win actually for him. Yeah, back to his best. Hopefully, we'd like to see him in a couple of big fights. I remember he was defending that Latino title for way too long. It really kind of stagnated his career. Moving up to the final 3 fights, though, Shakur Stevenson, he looked really good. He beat Christopher Diaz 24-1. Of course, Diaz's only other loss came in a world title fight to Masayuki Ito. It was for the IBF Intercontinental Featherweight strap and the vacant WBO NABO Featherweight strap. Shakur Stevenson 11-0 now. He pretty much won every round. He seemed to coast the last round. I don't know what that was about really. Some people weren't impressed, but listen, he won everything aside from that. He's got a few things going on outside the ring, and I think for him to be able to kind of put that at the back of his mind while he put on a real world-class performance here, that needs to be applauded. So a good win there for friend of the show Shakur Stevenson. Another friend of the show though, Teofimo Lopez, 12-0. He was able to get in there with Edis Tatley, a man that had never been stopped, 31-2 going in, now 31-3. He was able to get the knockout in the 5th round, Teofimo Lopez. He celebrated with the backflip, as he does quite often. It was for the NABF lightweight title. Really impressive win there for Lopez. Like I say, a man that is sure of becoming a future world champion. It just has to happen. He's only 21 years of age. It's almost unbelievable. He's doing all the right things, absolutely. Like I say, I've said it a few times, I don't want to see him get rushed into that Lomachenko fight too early. But the main event, Ayaz, I'm going to throw it over to you to begin here. Terence Crawford, 35-0 now. Again, a real long undefeated streak he's got there. And Amir Khan, of course, 33-5. It was his 5th loss. He was down in the first round. It was a real nightmare start. It was for Terence Crawford's WBO world title, and it ended with a TKO in round 6, but it ended with some serious controversy. Talk me through it, Ayaz.
We saw it in the fight from the first round that Amir Khan was using his speed. Well, obviously, it's the same shot that literally happened. When Chris Algieri hit him with that same shot, Canelo hit him with that same shot, and Terence Crawford hit with that same shot in the first round. You can see, like, obviously, when Amir Khan was punching, he was like literally trying to wave his hand off as well. Obviously, in the post-fight interview, he said that he had an elbow injury going into this fight. Obviously, in the second and third round, he used the speed a bit. But obviously, Crawford was still beating him in the rounds. On going into the 4th round, Amir Khan was using his speed. Obviously, you can see that he's trying to wave his hand off again. Obviously, because he said that he had an elbow injury. But Crawford was beating him 5th round. I gave it to Crawford. And in the 6th round, obviously, Khan used his speed. Crawford hit him with a body, and he hit him in the testicles. Now, they say you get 5 minutes. Now, obviously, Khan said to his corner, like, my stomach is hurting anymore. And there's rumours going around saying that Virgil was thrown in the towel. And according to Amir Khan on his Twitter, he said, I never quit a fight in my life. My understanding was that Virgil asked me if the low blow still hurt, and I said yes. My intention was to wait until and continue like always. Now, a lot of people said that he's a quitter. If he's a quitter, yeah, how can he be a quitter from this fight? He's fought all the top names. He's fought Crawford. If someone hits you in the balls, yeah, surely you're going to be in pain. And obviously, to be fair, like this fight, when I saw Khan fight, he didn't look like the Khan I remember watching against the Maidanas, the Judas, the Petersons. He looked like an old Khan. It's like this Khan looked completely different. Like, to be fair, like now that he's lost this fight, if I was him, I'd firstly hang up the gloves. I wouldn't give Kell Brook that last fight because there's no point. Kell Brook hasn't, to be fair, like he doesn't deserve the fight. I mean, he's still chasing the Khan fight. If you look at Khan's resume, I'll tell you something. In boxing at the moment, apart from Canelo, I think Khan's got the best resume at the moment. Obviously, if you look at his fights, he's fought everyone. He's literally has not ducked anyone. He's not ducking Kell Brook. There's no point because that Kell Brook fight is always going to be there. But obviously, now that with that, like I said, going back to the way he got punched in the balls. I personally think he couldn't carry on. A lot of people say he's a quitter. I don't think he's a quitter. So, I mean, like I said, I think Khan, from my opinion, there's no point in boxing again because obviously the only fight that's left in there is Kell Brook. And to be fair, it's not really an interesting fight. If it was back in 2015-16, it would have been a huge fight. But it's not that fight anymore. It doesn't bring much attention. So, I mean, like I said, I wish Khan all the best.
Yeah, I mean, in my heart of hearts, I think that Khan was probably trying to fish initially for a disqualification, and it seemed to backfire. It was very interesting because even I was very confused. I was looking at it thinking, well, wait, it was actually a low blow. He should have made a meal out of it if that was the case. He should have made a bigger meal out of it. He should have gone on the floor and started rolling around, but he didn't. And, you know, it was very sketchy afterwards when he started talking to the interviewer saying he couldn't move, even though he completely walked over to the middle of the ring to give the interview. He was putting the blame on Virgil. Virgil was putting the blame on him. It was very weird. It seemed like there was a huge misunderstanding, terrible communication from fighter to trainer. Look, I mean, I'm never going to call Amir Khan a quitter for the reasons that you underlined, really, Ayaz, saying that he's boxed everyone. He's arguably got the best resume in boxing, him and Canelo. 100% I agree with that. I can't actually bring myself to call Khan a quitter. Absolutely not. After all the things he's done, he's fought like a complete nutter and ended up getting himself knocked spark out. That goes to show there's no quitting that man. In fact, I'd say that of recent years, Khan's probably got the most heart of any boxer I've ever seen. I dare you to name me one that, another boxer that's even shown half the heart that Amir Khan has shown in a boxing ring. But yeah, I think it is the end of the road for Khan now. My selfish side does want to see that Brook fight, but it's certainly gone down. The stocks in that fight have certainly plummeted after this loss. Kell Brook looked really bad last time out as well, so it would really just be a last little cash grab. But I think Khan's made the complete wrong move by taking that fight. Perhaps he'll look back now and regret taking that Crawford fight, because if that really is the way he ends his career, and he would have made more money fighting Brook, I think he should have took the Brook fight. I think he should have took the Brook fight a long time ago, to be honest with you. But my quick assessment on the actual fight, I felt the first round Amir started really well, and he was on his way to winning that round, and then of course he got caught. He scares the life out of me watching Amir Khan. It really does. My heart is pumping for the whole fight. I'm even biting my fingernails watching him. I think it was a right hand counter, I believe it was, and his feet were all wrong, Amir Khan, and he went down, he got back up, he kind of got saved by the bell a little bit. He fought all right, actually. He got back up, his head cleared, but his legs were still a bit shaky, but obviously a 10-8 round there. The second round, Khan, for me, did win that round. I don't think too much really landed from either guy, but the few that did land were most of the time Amir's shots, so a 10-9 round there for Amir, and that was really all I gave him up until the finish. The third round, again, Crawford was switching. I think he switched to southpaw in that round, and Amir really struggled to work that out. The fourth round, again, you'd probably have to give it to Crawford. He was ripping to the body of Khan, but Khan did take some big shots upstairs. He answered well. He took some big shots. He did land some nice shots himself, but they were just few and far between, and it was the first time where I'd ever actually said to myself, Amir Khan was letting rounds slip away because he was being too cautious. He wasn't doing enough. Amir Khan, it didn't suit him being that patient. That's not his style. He is quite gung-ho. He's been made to pay for it, but most of the time he's reaped the rewards of it, really. But yeah, it was obvious, the knockdown and the factor that Crawford is such an accurate puncher that he really could get clipped and knocked out. That was probably playing a part in Khan not overcommitting. It was a very measured performance so far in that fourth round from Khan, so another round slipped away from him there. In the fifth round, again, Crawford was just so relaxed. He was dishing out punishment. It was becoming a little bit one-sided. Khan did land a brilliant right hand in the dying seconds of the fifth round, but certainly wasn't a calm round. It seemed already like Khan was going to need to really switch up the tactics and probably risk being knocked out. When he did let his hands go, he did have success in the fight, but it was just too patient from Amir Khan. He's never done it before. He's never been that disciplined, and like I say, in that sixth round, it was a low blow. I'm not quite sure it was actually in the nuts like he says it was, but the referee did give Khan some time, and then, like I say, Virgil stepped in and stopped the fight, and yeah, I'm not quite sure. Khan seems like he's changed his story a few times, but I'm just not branding him as a quitter at all. I think Khan's done enough to earn the benefit of the doubt over the years. But yeah, very sad to see, and if that's the end for Khan, it's a great shame, but he's been in boxing for a long time. I remember his goal was to retire at age 28, and to be honest with you, he actually could have retired at age 28. He's always had money, and he's been fighting for pride more than money in my eyes, because that's why he didn't take the Brook fight. He could have made big money there, but he just fights for pride, and like I say, that's the reason he's got such a big heart. But if it is the end for Khan, then we wish him all the very best, Ayaz. Just for the people that were comparing Amir Khan to Dave Allen. Dave Allen, funny enough, tweeted after the fight that Amir needs to retire. And that's my whole point. I mean, Amir has actually been a world level fighter, and he hasn't took shots off heavyweights. But that was Dave Allen. After 5 losses, he said to Amir Khan, "You need to retire." He tweeted that out, believe it or not, at about 5 or 6 in the morning. And I was saying the exact same thing. The only problem is Dave Allen's been taking shots from heavyweights, and Dave Allen hasn't gone on to win world titles. He's never really showed any promise, on the same level of winning a silver medal at 17 years of age. And Dave Allen, if he lost to Lucas Brown, that would have been his 5th loss. So that was my point. But Dave Allen didn't like that. His supporters didn't like that. And but he thinks the exact same for Amir Khan, who's actually won world titles, who's made loads of money. It doesn't make any sense. But that was like quite funny to see that, actually. Nothing against Dave, by the way, but what I said was true. I felt like if Dave got stopped, then I thought it'd be the end for Dave. I wouldn't want to see him rack up, a 6th loss. That's all I'm saying. And Dave quite clearly understands where I'm coming from because he thinks the same about Amir Khan. Anyways, we'll leave that one there. Getting back to the prediction league, though, that was quite interesting, Ayaz. Not a single prediction that you made with on all the fights the listeners agreed with. You all went against each other. The listeners were able to gain 2 points and you were able to gain 1 point, Ayaz. You went with Garcia to get the knockout. The listeners said Garcia points, but the listeners went with Allen by knockout. You went with Allen on points, and the listeners did back the Crawford knockout, whereas you thought that Crawford would win on points. So 2 points gained there for the listeners, 1 point for yourself, Ayaz. That means that you're now at the very back. You're behind the listeners. Again, people need to send us in suggestions for some kind of punishment for Ayaz to do if he does end up losing out to the listeners. So, that'd be fun. I'm looking forward to that one. But that's about it, though, for the review part of the show. Just before we wrap up part 1, the last thing to do, of course, is to welcome guest number 1. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the undefeated female NABF lightweight champion. It is, of course, Miss Selina Barrios. Selina, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Hey, it's a brilliant pleasure having you on, Selina. I want to talk about, of course, your upcoming fight. I want to just kind of dissect your career. I want to talk about your record, 5-0. Obviously, you made your debut back in January 2017 against Tammy Franks. You were able to stop her in 40 seconds. I mean, Tammy Franks is she's a tough girl, She's never, ever been stopped anywhere near that quickly. Was it a good or bad thing, looking back now, to stop her that quickly, Selina?
To be honest, I think it was a good thing, especially to start off my pro career. I mean, like I said, I always tell people, cause they're like, oh, you were just looking for a knockout. And I was like, no, honestly, I wasn't. It just so happened that I ended up landing a shot like that. And then, I mean, they ended up stopping it. So it was a good experience for my first pro debut.
Yeah, she's a tough girl. I mean, obviously in the male side of the sport, we say a journeyman. She's kind of got like a journeywoman record, but she's a tough girl. She knows how to survive. So that was a real statement. And then, of course, came the Jasmine Clarkson fight, another tough girl who doesn't often get stopped. You went the distance there, but you was able to shut her out over 4 rounds. Then, of course, the Lisa Porter fight. I mean, Lisa was undefeated. It was for the NABF title, a majority decision over 10 rounds back in December 2017. Please talk us through that fight, Selina.
That was actually, I mean, still to this day, that was one of my, I wouldn't say toughest fights, but it was a really good learning experience because, I mean, Lisa Porter, she did have an amazing amateur background just like me, and she wasn't just one of those female fighters where you could just go in and pretty much do whatever with you. Kind of had to pick and choose your certain shots that were going in, and you kind of had to see the different style that she had versus the girls that I had previously fought. Because like I said, she's had experience as well. So she's one of those opponents where you can't just, go in there, underestimate anybody and expecting, oh, well, I'm just going to beat her like anything, So it was a really good learning experience with her. Still to this day, like I said, she's a really good opponent as far as the female boxing goes, because she's a really good boxer and she knows how to move and she knows how to hit.
And then the Ida Satiboldanova fight. I mean, we actually streamed that fight on our website to allow the UK fight fans to watch it. And boy, oh boy, did you impress. I mean, you delivered undoubtedly one of the best knockouts of 2018. It was brutal. I remember watching that. I couldn't believe it. Talk us through that one. An epic knockout there, Selina.
Yeah, that one, man, just leading up to the whole fight and preparing for that fight, like, I was just so determined, to make a solid statement because, like, since, like, I guess day one of me, like, finding out that I was going to fight her, I was just like, okay, well, that's fine, I take every one of my fights serious, so I was like, all right, I'm prepared for it, I'm going to do what I have to do in training camp. Well, like, the whole training camp, it turns out, like, everybody was, like, hyping her up, they were calling her the female Triple G, and I was just like, I mean, okay, that's fine, if they call her the female Triple G, that obviously means that she, must be good. So I was like, all right, that's understandable. I was okay with it. Like, it didn't, like, do anything to me. It didn't, make me feel scared, or it didn't change, like, my perspective of, like, what I needed to do as far as, like, the fight goes. So I was like, okay, well, that's fine. And then, of course, I had more people saying, well, she fights like this, she hits her like this. And I was just like, yeah, that's fine. Like, that's part of boxing. Like, you're going to, eventually have to fight those type of girls, especially, like, in the female boxing, because there's not that many females in my weight division. So I was like, that's fine. Like, it's understandable. It's okay. And everybody was just like, I wouldn't say against, but they were just, I guess you could more or less say, like, they're more worried about her because they called her the female Triple G. And so when I ended up knocking her out, they were like, oh, wow, like, never mind. Like, you really do know how to handle yourself very well. And I was just like, yeah, like I said, like, any knockouts that I have gotten, they weren't like, oh, well, this is the punch that I'm looking for, in my training camp. This is the one punch that I'm trying to knock her out with. Like I said, just the combinations and just the certain punches they end up landing, and, like, every fighter, like, it's just unexpected, to be honest. And like I said, I wasn't expecting the fight to end that quickly because, like I said, like, she had fought good fighters, and she had won a title too, I believe in Mexico or something. So I was like, okay, well, I was actually expecting, a longer fight than what ended up happening.
But no, that knockout was just unbelievable. Again, for people that perhaps are listening to this that haven't gone and watched that knockout, I'm sure the clip is on YouTube. It is devastating. Moving on, the most recent win you've got, of course, a 10-round points win over the undefeated Patricia Juarez. You defended your NABF title also. Do you just want to say a couple of words on that before we move on?
Yes. That fight, it was, I honestly, I would say the typical Mexican brawling type of fight. I ended up getting my first headbutt clash with the cut. So that was one of those, like, oh, wow, like, there's actually, I'm bleeding for one. And just to actually have, like, I actually noticed, too, like, with certain fights, like, the fighters, like, when they get, like, a headbutt, like, above the eye, or, if there's blood going in, and, like, it kind of affects their vision. And I always wondered, like, oh, wow, like, I wonder, like, how it is to actually have, like, blood go in your eye. And it ended up happening to me, and I was like, oh, my goodness, like, this is not a good feeling because it really burns. And then it makes your whole eye red. So I was like, oh, wow. So that fight, of course, like I said, it was like a brawling match. With that one, it was, I guess I just wanted to make a statement because, again, I was considered the underdog only because Patricia Juarez's sister has a bunch of titles in her weight division. So I was like, okay, well, her sister has a bunch of titles in her weight division in Mexico. So, she's going to be a tough opponent. So with that one, I was just, I was trying to make a statement because, to be honest, like, at the weigh-ins and stuff, they were kind of just laughing at me. And, I guess just pretty much acting like I was just going to be just a walkover opponent for her. So I was just like, okay, well, that's fine. Like, I never like, talk bad about any of my opponents. Like, I never say anything. I'm just like, I know what I have to do. I train right, and I pretty much do what I need to in order to prepare for my fight correctly.
Well, if they were laughing, the joke was on them. You've been on fire. Three back-to-back wins over undefeated females. The next fight, you're fighting on Saturday at the Cajun Dome in Louisiana. The undercard of Pro Grey Relic. This is obviously the biggest stage you've fought on thus far in your career. I'm guessing you're massively looking forward to Saturday night.
Oh, yes, most definitely. This one is going to be, like you said, like, the most, like, the biggest card I've ever fought on. Like, my previous cards that I fought on, I was either the main event or, just about just on a regular card. So this one is going to be my most exciting fight, and I'm beyond blessed and excited to actually fight on this card because, like I said, like this is going to be my first time fighting on a big undercard like this. So I'm really, really looking forward to this fight. And especially, like I said, my opponent, she has 22-something fights. And I'm just like, okay, well, you know, this is going to be like one of those, like, where every boxer has to challenge themselves. And, you know, like, I'm beyond excited, to be honest. Like I said, I've been doing everything I'm supposed to in training camp, and everything's been going well. So I'm just pretty much prepared to, you know, not just show, like, the people who are actually having the fight, but just, you know, just show people in general, like, what I have to bring to the female boxing.
Yeah, because the World Boxing Super Series, the way they do it, they put like a big, it's really weird. Usually at boxing, you've got like the media section, it's like a few rows, but in the World Boxing Super Series, the way they do it, it's like a big circle of desks with computers, with all the media kind of circling the ring. It's really unique, and the lights and stuff, like the display, it's really different. I mean, it's a big jump from some of the venues in Corpus Christi. You'll be fighting, if I'm not mistaken, is it Melissa Hernandez still?
Yes, sir.
Excellent.
It is.
I mean, this is a great fight. Obviously, former WBC Featherweight World Champion herself. She hasn't boxed since 2016. That was actually before you'd even turned pro. Do you know much about her, Selina?
To be honest, I don't know much about her. Like, when it comes to, like, my opponents, I take whatever, like, my dad, who's my trainer, like, whatever he pretty much, you know, he studies my opponents for me because, of course, he is my trainer. So whatever he sees, you know, that's what we end up working on in the gym. And like I said, this Melissa, she's actually, I would consider like a veteran in the women's boxing. Like, she's been around a while. She's not just a walkover opponent, you know. So I'm pretty much doing what I have to do, you know, to come out victorious Saturday night. And I'm just really excited and prepared for it.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but will this be 3-minute rounds instead of 2-minute rounds?
I'm not exactly sure. They haven't really said anything about the minute rounds. As far as I'm concerned, I believe it's still 2 minutes, and it's supposed to be 6 rounds, but I seen on the actual card it says 6 to 8, so I'm not exactly sure like how that's gonna play out.
Okay, cool. And how are you finding sparring, Selina? I'm guessing that you probably have to spar with men most of the time.
Yes. To be honest, especially where I live in San Antonio, there's not that many, like, I would say female pros. There's a couple, but I wouldn't say they don't like to spar me. Just, it's not really a challenge for me because, to be honest, like, the female sparring versus, you know, the men sparring, it's a lot more different, of course, because, of course, the men, you know, they have their own strength versus the females. And me personally, I'm like, you know what, like, you know, I'm a pro, so those are 8-ounce gloves. You know, 8-ounce gloves versus 16-ounce gloves, especially when you're fighting a female, it's totally different, you know, and especially without headgear. So I'm like, you know what, like, I need to challenge myself, and I've always sparred, you know, the men at my gym. And, of course, like, I'm beyond thankful for them for helping me, you know. So, you know, like, I'm, you know, every now and then I'll get, you know, a little tag here and there from them. But, of course, like, they apologize to me and stuff. But I just tell them, like, no, like, honestly, like, this is what I need because, like, if I can handle a punch like this in sparring, then, you know, I wouldn't say, like, it's going to be an easy punch to, you know, to take, like, in the actual fight. But, like, I'll be prepared for it more or less. And like I said, like, as far as the female pros in San Antonio, there's not that many, and the ones that are here, they don't like to spar me.
And I want to ask you also, Selina, I know that you said you're very respectful towards your opponents and stuff like that. Do you actually have any rival at the minute? Like, is there any woman out there that you have a desire to fight at all, or just not just yet?
No, not just yet. I mean, of course, like, I want to fight the top females in my weight division, and if I have to go lower as far as like fighting at 130 instead of 135, I mean, I'm prepared for it and I'm ready for it. Like I said, right now the sky's the limit for me, and I'm just pretty much doing what I have to for me and my daughter because I am a single mom. So everything that I do is not just for myself, but for her as well.
Oh wow, respect to you. I didn't know that. That's incredibly cool.
Thank you.
I see that you're fighting at lightweight, but you've been coming in light. Really, you've been weighing about 133. Is your goal eventually to get down to super featherweight for the bigger title fights?
Yes, exactly. Right now that's what me and my managers and my dad, of course, with my coach. That's what we're kind of like, aiming towards. Like, of course, I started my career off, around 138, and then of course I eventually won my NABF title at 135. So they're like, okay, well let's do what the other female fighters have done, like, as far as like winning titles and eventually getting them, and then just moving different weight divisions, to unify those titles and stuff. So that's pretty much what we're working towards right now, to eventually fight at 130 for a title. So we're just aiming towards that.
And coming down to the last couple of questions, Selina, what are your thoughts on Katie Taylor? Obviously, she campaigns at lightweight. She seems to be bringing a lot of attention, really, to women's boxing. Are you a fan of hers?
Yeah, I'm honestly, like, I'm a fan of any, as far as like women or men go. Like, I'm a fan of any fighter, really. Like I said, Katie Taylor, she's, of course, like, she's doing what she has to. She's a great boxer. She knows how to hit and move correctly. So, like, she would be one of the ones that I would honestly look forward to fighting her, like, if I ever do get the chance to. Like I said, because everybody, they want to eventually fight for those titles that she has. So, of course, like, that would be one of those ones that I'm like, okay, well, man, like, I'd be honored, if I could ever fight her for one of those titles.
Okay, and your little brother Mario, he's doing brilliant things right now. He's 23-0. We've had him on the show before, and he has said that he gets more nervous watching you fight than actually fighting himself. Is that the same for you? Are you nervous when he's fighting?
To be honest, yes, I would say so, because even like growing up and seeing him spar, even seeing him fight at tournaments, I'm just always there, like, a little nervous, like shaking a little bit. But then once I see my brother actually, in there, like, doing what he has to do, like, my nerves kind of, settle down a little bit. But of course, there's always that adrenaline, like, where you're, screaming and you're excited for them. So I would say so, yeah.
And I asked him also, I said, because Selina's older than you, when you were little, did you ever, have any fights and stuff when you were growing up? Did she ever give you a bit of a beating? He kind of didn't want to answer that question. I'm wondering if you can say anything. Did you ever give him a little bit of a beating when he was younger?
No, I wouldn't say so. Of course, him being my younger brother, because he's the only boy in our family. I guess because I was a tomboy, I was just one of those, like, rougher sisters rather than, the girly type. And of course, since me and him started boxing around the same time, it was just one of those, like, well, I wouldn't necessarily say I would pick on my brother. Just, I just wanted him, to be, like, a little tougher. But eventually, like, he grew out of it, and eventually he got taller than me. So, like, there was no really need for me to protect him like I used to do, like, in elementary school and, just, growing up in general.
Excellent stuff. And the last thing I was going to say, Selina, do you use social media at all? I don't think you're on Twitter, are you? Are you on anything so that people listening can follow your journey?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have Twitter. My brother's always on my butt about that one. He's always like, no, you need to make Twitter because everybody has Twitter. I'm just like, okay, well, I don't know how to use it. But the only thing I do have right now is Facebook and Instagram. I do post a lot with my boxing on my Instagram, and sometimes, like, if people aren't allowed, like, I wouldn't say if they're not, there to see my fights, like, I will eventually go live on my Instagram for them just so they'll actually be able to see it.
Okay, and where can people actually follow you? Can you spell it out where they can follow you on Instagram and stuff like that, Selina?
Yeah, of course. It's Barrios, BARRIOS _S. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It's boxer _S Barrios. So it's, of course, boxer and then _S BARRIOS.
Okay, boxer _S Barrios. Everybody must check that out. Give Selina a follow. And just before we let you go, Selina, I just really wanted to throw it over to you if you've got any kind of closing words for our listeners before we let you go.
No, just I'm very honored, to be on your podcast today, and just thank you so much for, allowing me to speak. And I hope everybody has a great evening. Thank you so much.
No, honestly, the pleasure has been mine, Selina. It really has been an honor having you on the show. Best of luck for Saturday, and I hope to catch up again sometime after.
Thank you so much.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. During that interview just there, Ayaz had to leave due to a family emergency, so Ayaz will not be partaking in the rest of this week's show. He's left a sheet of paper here with the predictions for this week's Prediction League, so we'll get onto that in due time. All the best with Ayaz, of course. But going over to the news part, I mean, there's not really too much to mention here. Dillian Whyte will be taking on Oscar Rivas for the number 1 heavyweight spot in the WBC rankings. I'm not quite sure that means too much. It's going to be happening at the O2 Arena on July 20th. It's also going to be on Sky Sports Box Office, so I'm hoping that they're going to make it a real good undercard, because that fight alone obviously doesn't do big numbers in my opinion. Oscar Rivas is a good fighter though. He's coming off that knockout against Bryant Jennings. Obviously he's undefeated. He's a Colombian Olympian and he's based in Canada. I've spoke to him a few times actually, not on the show. I don't think his English is good enough, but he's pretty good with a translator on the direct messages. He seems like a nice guy from what I can make of it. All the very best to him actually, because you know, he was a good amateur. I think he fought Michael Hunter in the amateurs, stuff like that. I think Hunter beat him, but a good fighter. He's a strong, relentless type of guy. And, you know, if you watch that Bryant Jennings fight, he was excellent there. But that is really the only piece of news to mention. We're still awaiting Joshua's replacement opponent. Who is it? Nobody seems to know just yet. There's been some last minute movements that it's going to be Andy Ruiz Jr., who we mentioned in part 1. Obviously he fought on the weekend, so I can't understand how he's going to be ready. I mean, he's not going to be ready, let's be honest. You can't just peak and, you know, you can't just peak and not peak and then get ready for a fight and then have the fight and then, you know, suddenly peak again all too soon. It's not going to happen for him. It's going to be a stupid matchup actually. I hope that Andy Ruiz doesn't just take that fight, because if he does, then he's surely just taking it for the payday. It's clear to see he is not going to be in fighting tip-top shape. He's not going to be ready for that one physically. But yeah, forget about the news. That is all there is. Moving over now to the preview part of the show. We're going to start here with a card that's happening later today at the Fantasy Springs Casino in Indio, California, USA. It's a Golden Boy Promotions card, and what I like about this card is it's pretty much topped by 2 fights. There's like a main event and a co-main event. Let's start with the quote-unquote main event here. We've got Canada's Yves Ulysse Jr., 17-1. The one loss came to Steve Claggett. A very controversial loss, by the way. Yves Ulysse actually thought that he won the fight. Well, here is the rematch. Steve Claggett gets back in. It gives him a chance to avenge that defeat there. Steve Claggett, 27-5 with 2 draws. Like I say, I didn't actually watch the first fight, but this is the rematch. This is redemption time for Ulysse, who is a very good boxer. And I like his attitude, because after this first fight that they had, he was so furious with the decision that he wanted to fight straight away. He didn't want to wait. He wanted to fight straight away, and he actually was back in the ring just 6 weeks later against the undefeated knockout machine, Cletus Seldin. Don't laugh at me there. Cletus Seldin, he may be a little bit one-dimensional, but he can certainly crack. And I tell you what, Yves Ulysse Jr. completely schooled him and made him look dreadful that night there. So credit to Yves Ulysse Jr. He's got my respect for sure. All the very best to him here. Hopefully he avenges that sole defeat to Steve Claggett. Also on the undercard, like I say, the co-main event, another rematch. Oscar Negrete, 18-1 with 1 draw. He takes on Josh Franco, very good prospect, 14-1 with 1 draw. But yeah, they fought to a draw last time out. I believe it's an immediate rematch. It's for the NABF Bantamweight title, so may the best man win there. We don't like a draw. No one likes a draw. Moving out now though to the Entertainment Centre in New South Wales, Australia. Couple fights to mention over here actually. Former opponent of Carl Frampton, 17-1 Luke Jackson. Of course the one loss came to Frampton. He's back in an 8-rounder here. When he came over to was it Ireland or was it Northern Ireland, the fight? Well anyway, when he came over, this guy, we quite liked him. He had a good story about him, and you know, he lost the fight. He was game, he tried his best, he just wasn't quite good enough for Carl that night. That was that stadium fight, wasn't it? At the stadium that I cannot remember, but it was like it was a dream for Carl Frampton to fight there, and it happened with Luke Jackson. So he played his part in the fight. He just wasn't good enough, and he had a good story. We all wished him the very best moving forward. So all the best to him in this 8-rounder. No opponent just yet. Billy Dibb returns to the ring, unbelievably. 43-5, former IBF Featherweight World Champion, friend of the show, friend of mine, Billy Dibb. He retired after losing to Tevin Farmer in Australia about a year ago now, and he seems to be back on this card here in an 8-rounder. I haven't spoke to him, but I'm curious to kind of know what's going through his head coming back after that length of time out the ring. He didn't look great in that fight against Tevin Farmer, but then again, Tevin Farmer is a top quality operator. But yeah, all the very best to Billy Dibb if he does decide to go for a few more fights. Moving over now, though, to the Forum in Inglewood, California, USA, a Sky card, a DAZN card over here. Let's start with the undercard. Anthony Sims Jr., 18-0, a man that's really, really loved by the fans. He takes on brother of Devon, Vaughan Alexander, the guy that I think went to jail for about 7 or 8 years. His record 14-2. I know he lost, I think it was his he lost to Dennis Duglin, but he's not a bad fighter, Vaughan Alexander. That's a 10-rounder there. Former world champion Jesse Vargas, 28-2 with 2 draws, takes on Humberto Soto. Of course, Soto was able to beat Brandon Rios last time out on that terrible card that happened in Mexico. Not that it really does big things for him, because I think Brandon Rios is absolutely shot to pieces, unfortunately, even though I like the guy. And that win wasn't impressive for me, but he manages to get himself a shot here with Jesse Vargas on an undercard in California. Humberto Soto in search of win number 70. He's got 69 wins. He's got 9 losses and 2 draws. Jesse Vargas, like I say, 28-2 with 2 draws. That's a 10-rounder there. And a unification here. Daniel Roman. We will be speaking to a guy in a few moments' time after the preview part that I'm sure will have his eye on this one. We'll be speaking to Brandon Figueroa. He is the interim WBA Super World Bantamweight Champion, and of course that belt's on the line here, not the interim version, the full version, along with the IBF that TJ Doheny brings to the table. TJ Doheny 21-0, Daniel Roman 26-2 with 1 draw. I definitely think that fight goes points. Ayaz believes that, let me just figure this out. Where's the piece of paper he's left here? Okay, so Ayaz believes that Danny Roman will win on points. You, the listeners, have gone with Danny Roman to win by knockout. So you're both split there. For what it's worth, I think Danny Roman probably wins on points. Again, my prediction's not going to count. I've already completed it, mate, as Jay from In-Betweeners would say. I think that Danny Roman probably wins on points. I think he's got a good engine, whereas Doheny looked brilliant in his last fight, and then when it got to the midway point, he seemed to kind of not gas, but not really gas. I think that's probably a harsh word, but he seemed to slow down, and then the Japanese fighter that he fought, I forgot his name now, he was able to really come back into the fight and win a few rounds back to back. So I think it could be the undoing here if Doheny, comes to the ring with the same stamina issues, and I think that Roman will probably close the show and look good later on in the fight. I think he probably wins on points, though. I think Doheny's quite a tough guy. Also on that bill, topping the bill, with Saxel Wangek, the man that loves to chew on a rodent when he can. 47-4 with 1 draw. He puts his WBC World Super Flyweight title on the line against Juan Francisco Estrada. 38-3. A brilliant fight, by the way. It is kind of strange that this is a bill topper. It's a hardcore fan type fight. This one, it's not for the casuals. They probably don't know who either guy is. The 2 fighters have got a bit of history as well, so that adds to it. Moving over now though to the Wembley Arena in Wembley, London, United Kingdom. On this one, let's start here with Daniel Dubois, 10-0. He takes on, he was actually supposed to be taking on Richard Lartey from Ghana, but unfortunately he had some visa issues, so with just about 48 hours and perhaps a couple more, perhaps about 50 hours now till fight night. He is without an opponent, so I'm guessing he probably won't fight anyone. So that fight looks like it's going to be off, unfortunately. Also on that bill, we get to see Hamza Shiraz 7-0. Hopefully the fight goes a bit longer than the last one. I think he knocked the guy out with about... was it about 10 or 12 seconds into the fight? It was mad. 7-0, like I say. He takes on wily journeyman, to be honest. Ladislav Nemeth, 13-56 with 9 draws. That's a 6-rounder there. Jack Catterall, 23-0, no opponent just yet. That's a 10-rounder there. Sonny Edwards, 10-0, no opponent just yet. That's a 10-rounder there. Archie Sharp fights on the card as well. I'm not sure how many rounds it is, actually, but he takes on the guy that Leon Woodstock boxed in his last fight. Leon Woodstock went the distance with him, but I believe he dropped him in the final round. I think it was an 8-rounder, and the guy's name is Sergio Gonzalez, so that's who Archie Sharp fights on Saturday night. I went to the open workout earlier this week, and it was good to see. Archie looked real good on the pads. Yeah, that's an 8-rounder there, just to confirm. And also on the bill, we get to see Zach Chelly, 6-0. He fights for the vacant Southern Area super middleweight title against Jimmy Smith, 7-1. Jimmy Smith, obviously the one loss came to Yalton Neves, who's actually a journeyman southpaw. He's from Manchester by way of Portugal. And I haven't just checked that. That is all upstairs, ladies and gentlemen. I've seen the guy fight. Yalton Neves isn't a bad fighter, but losing to him doesn't look good when you're taking on Zach Chelly, a man that I really do like the look of, and he hits harder than his record suggests. He's only got the 3 knockouts from 6 wins, but believe me, he can crack. And finally, the final fight to mention, Lerone Richards, 11-0. He takes on Tommy Langford, 21-3. It's for the vacant Commonwealth super middleweight title and the vacant WBO International super middleweight title. We like Lerone Richards. He's a friend of the show. We also like Tommy Langford. He's a friend of the show. Both men have been on. Lerone Richards is a guy that, I'm going to say this, and I don't mean any disrespect here, but he's kind of dining out on this reputation he got in the ring and sparred Eubank Jr. and gave him all sorts of issues. That's what we're led to believe. And it's not his own fault, by the way. This is something that interviewers, including myself probably, we've brought it up time and time again. I'm doing it now. He gave Eubank Jr. some real issues in sparring. Apparently he gave him a bit of a beating in sparring. He's been on the show, like I say, talking about that incident, but he hasn't really had that marquee name on his record. I know he wanted to take on the likes of Jermaine Smile in the past. That would have been a good fight. It never happened. So he's been searching for a long time for that marquee name. And Tommy Langford is that guy. So it's a brilliant fight. It's obviously going to be the toughest fight of Lerone Richards' career. And I'm looking forward to it. And like I say, may the best man win. And if he does get this win and in good fashion, Lerone, then people will probably stop talking about that sparring session that he absolutely hates. Being brought up all the time. I know he does. He doesn't want to be talking about sparring. He wants to be talking about real fights that you win under the bright lights. He doesn't really care about sparring sessions. That's it though for Wembley. Moving out now to the Oasis Leisure Centre in Swindon, Wiltshire, United Kingdom. Friend of the show, Luke the Duke Watkins, 13-2. I'm not sure if he's boxed since the defeat to Isaac Chamberlain at the Copperbox Arena. Not quite sure, but he takes on Ozzy Jervier, who's got a record of 6-7. Ozzy's actually a former opponent of Isaac Chamberlain. That's an 8-rounder there. Who else is on that bill? No one really to mention. Moving out now to the Cajun Dome in Lafayette, Louisiana, USA. I think I'm saying that right. It's a World Boxing Super Series card. And by the way, another little bit of news. Sky Sports have done a deal to show the semi-finals on their channel, so it's brilliant, because I think I was going to have to find a stream somewhere, or perhaps go on a YouTube channel somewhere on the laptop. Oh, that's such a headache. I'd rather watch it on the TV, and Sky Sports have delivered, so brilliant stuff for us UK boxing fans. On the undercard, we get to see Selina Barrios, 5-0. We spoke to her earlier on. She takes on former WBC Featherweight World Champion Melissa Hernandez, 22-7, with 3 draws. That is, I believe, supposed to be a 6 to 8 rounder, Selina said, but that is 2-minute rounds from my understanding. It said 3 minutes originally, but now it actually says 2 minutes, so that has changed quite rapidly. So yeah, all the very best to Selina there, of course. Also on the bill, friend of the show, Regis Prograis, 23-0. He fights for the WBA World Super Lightweight title, which of course belongs to Kirill Relik, and he also puts his WBC Diamond Super Lightweight title on the line. Kirill Relik, like I say, 23-2. I just think that Prograis is going to have too much really for Relik. Interestingly though, the listeners have gone with a Prograis win on points. Quite big actually, 60% saying Prograis on points, only 20% saying Prograis by knockout. I think Prograis does knock him out. I don't think Kirill Relik's going to be able to deal with the power that Prograis possesses actually, and Ayaz has gone with a Prograis knockout. We've actually just skipped one here. Ayaz is actually backing Tommy Langford to get a points win over Lerone Richards. Well, that is quite interesting. I mean, I'm not saying he can't do it. That is his strength. He's not a banger. He's a good boxer, Tommy Langford, when he uses it. He's not really good with shorter men. We saw that when he took on Kurt Sidzi. Going backwards here a little bit. But, yeah, that's interesting. But you, the listeners, have gone with Lerone Richards on points. So, okay, that's interesting. I'm going to stay out of that one. I don't need to give a prediction. I'm already there, ladies and gents. I like saying that. I just like to rub it in here and there, but it's not that fun when Ayaz isn't here to hear it, because it really gets under his skin. Remember, we need to think of something he's got to do. He's gonna have to sing some karaoke, something like that. Sending your suggestions on Twitter at BoxHard Podcast, and topping this bill. I think it's top of the bill. Perhaps it's chief support. But anyway, another friend of the show, Nonito Donaire, 39-5. He puts his WBA Super World Bantamweight title on the line, and also he fights for the WBC Diamond Bantamweight title. I think that belt is vacant. I could be wrong. But yeah, in the other corner, it's a late replacement, unfortunately. Zelani Tete managed to injure himself on fight week. I think it was on the Monday, and he now takes on Stephen Young, a guy with a record of 18-1 with 3 draws, only 7 knockouts, so he doesn't seem to be a big banger. His only loss came to a guy called Raymark Gaballo, who was 18-0. That was back in March of 2018. But really and truly, his whole resume doesn't really have anything outstanding. But of course, it's not Nonito's fault. He's been given a lot of good luck, actually. But he wouldn't have wanted this fight. I know he was really, really up for the Tete fight. He gets a last-minute replacement, so it's a big chance here for Stephen Young. But in all honesty, I mean, I can see Nonito winning. I'm not quite sure the status, if this is officially going to be the semi-finals or not, but it really could appear that Nonito, because of his 2 opponents, Ryan Burnett and Zelani Tete, getting injured, he's managed to get a real fortunate way to the finals, so that'll be interesting. All the best to Nonito. Like I say, one of the nicest guys, and it is a real shame that the Zelani Tete fight didn't happen. Perhaps Zelani Tete and Ryan Burnett are both going to be back ready to to fight each other. We'd love to see that happen, though I don't think it will. But they're both coming off injuries, so that'd be a great fight to see if we don't get to see the Tete and Donaire fight rescheduled. So all the very best there to Nonito Donaire. Moving out now to the final bill to mention. This one is happening at the Cosmopolitan of Las Vegas in Nevada, USA. We're going to start here with the undercard. Efia Jagba, the Nigerian heavyweight that is absolutely demolishing opponents. He's the guy that has got a win because the opponent actually jumped out the ring and ran up the stage, got back in his car and shot off home. Efia Jagba 9-0, like I say. It's a 10-rounder, though I don't expect it going that long. He takes on Michael Wallish, who was actually an undefeated prospect. He was 19-0, and then he ran into Christian Hammer, and he lost his O. So that's his one loss. He's 19-1, so I'm expecting a Jagba to probably do a job on him. Also on the bill, Victor Postel, we like him, 30-2, his record. Of course, the 2 losses, Terence Crawford and Josh Taylor, not too bad. He takes on Mohamed Mimoun, 21-2. He beat Sam Eggington, didn't he? Yeah, he beat Sam Eggington, and that was pretty much at welterweight. It was at welterweight. That one was for the EBU European welterweight title. Victor Postel is at 140 though, so I'm wondering if this fight is at welterweight or 140. I think if it's at it's at 140. He seems to have moved down. Mohamed Mamoun has moved down. He's had his last 2 fights actually at that weight. He was always a small welterweight by the looks of it. He never really came in at 147. He always came in about 145, about 144. He's moved down, so his last 2 fights have both gone the distance. He's won both of them on points. Yeah, fair enough. He takes on Victor Postel. Talking a little bit too much about that fight. And the main event, though, Robert Easter Jr., former IBF Lightweight World Champion, 21-1. The one loss came to Mikey Garcia. He takes on Rances Barthelemy. This is a brilliant fight. We had Keith Hunter on the show, didn't we, a couple of weeks ago? And he has been pretty much the main sparring partner for Rances Barthelemy. This is a brilliant fight, of course. Barthelemy's only loss came to Kirill Relic. And he beat Kirill Relic in the fight beforehand, and then he lost the rematch. It was a bit strange, but look where Kirill Relic is. He's actually fighting Regis Prograis, for all the belts on a big channel. That's doing big business. I mean, this one is on Showtime, but I think he'd like to be in a better position, really. But he takes on Robert Easter Jr. It's probably Robert Easter Jr.'s fight to lose. Obviously, Barthelemy's come down in weight. The Relic fights were at 140. He was at lightweight before those 2 fights, but it's been a while since he's actually made 135. It's actually been almost 3 years, so you'd expect the advantage to be with Robert Easter Jr., who's a very big lightweight, by the way, and it is for the vacant IBO World Lightweight title and the vacant WBA World Lightweight title. So it's a chance here for Robert Easter Jr. to become a 2-time world champion. All the best to him. He's been on the show before once again, so he's a friend of the show for life. That is how it goes. But that is also about it for the preview part of the show. Just before we wrap up, the last thing to do is to welcome guest number 2. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the new interim WBA Super-Bantamweight World Champion. It is, of course, Mr. Brandon Figueroa. Brandon, welcome to the show, sir.
Hello, thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure, Brandon. It truly is. Obviously, you're fresh off your win on the weekend, but before we get on to that, I do just want to go back to your fight before last time. Obviously, it was January this year against Moises Flores. If I'm being honest with you, Brandon, when that fight got made, I was a little bit worried. I thought, Flores is a good boxer. He had that weird no contest against Rigondo. He lost on points to reigning world champion Daniel Roman. It was a tough fight on paper. I thought it was, a real hard fight, to be honest with you. But you became the first man to legitimately knock him out. Please talk us through that fight. A brilliant win.
Oh yes, sir. Of course, he the high advantage that he had over me. Because I usually have the high advantage over most of my opponents, but this time, he was a taller man, and that didn't worry me at all. I knew that. Obviously, he was going to give me what I want, which is more body. So I knew I was going to have the ability to hit him more to the body, which is, my style and my game plan. And, I broke him down early in the first round, and, he has a weird style. But I caught him with that left hook, and that was it. After that left hook, I'm a really good finisher, and I finished him.
And like we say there, you knocked him out in the 3rd round. For me, that was incredibly impressive. Your tactics actually took me by surprise as well. I mean, like I say, he was surely your biggest test, but you seemed to just kind of go in there and fight him, basically. It wasn't really a fight full of silky skills. It was very much a seek and destroy mission. Were they always the tactics going into that fight?
Oh, yes, sir, of course. Putting the pressure on your opponent, implementing the body work, breaking them down. And, he was a tough opponent. So, that's basically my game plan, is seek and destroy. And I know that my condition is superb. So I knew no matter what, I was going to last the whole 12 rounds if it came down to it. But I know that with my pressure, they're not going to last in there.
and your most recent win, like we say, it took place on Saturday on the Garcia Granados undercard in California. In the other corner, Yonfrez Parejo, a seasoned fighter. He's been in there with the likes of world champions like Ryan Burnett, like Zanat Zakhayanov, and also Hugo Ruiz. And again, you're still only 22 years of age. It's quite incredible. You made him quit after 8 rounds. Talk us through that fight just the other night.
Yes, sir. Of course. I knew he was a seasoned veteran, and like I said, my game plan is always to go in there and rough him up. And I caught him to the body. I hurt him. I broke him down. He didn't have any more legs. He used his legs probably to his last round before that one. I think it was the 6th round, I believe, was the round that I think that was it. I think that was his last, basically saying, this is it. I'm going to give him my on. And if it doesn't work, then I guess he was going to quit because, he didn't really do anything. He was catching me with some good clean punches. He was moving a lot. He was trying to box me. So I had to, adapt to that real quick. And by the next round, I adapted and, I put more pressure. And, I managed to hurt him really badly to the body, and I caught him with a lot of good punches, and, he didn't come out for the 9th round.
Yeah, he certainly didn't, and I think his corner wanted him to, but he just didn't want to. I mean, that's sometimes a bit sweeter than an actual knockout, because the guy had all his senses about him and he didn't want to carry on. I mentioned there you picked up the interim WBA World title. Of course, the full champion is Daniel Roman. He's fighting this weekend in a unification with the IBF champion TJ Doheny from Ireland. I'm sure you're going to be watching that fight. I'm sure it's on DAZN. How soon are you looking to be mixing it with these guys, Brandon? Because like I say, you're still only 22, but you're just flying through these tough challenges.
Oh, yes, sir. Of course, it's all hours at the gym that I put in, all my hard work and dedication. And not only that, I think it's most importantly my consistency in and out of the ring. But most importantly, yes, of course, this fight is something that, I want. Maybe the winner, it's just a matter of time before that fight lights up. We will see this weekend how this fight goes. And after, to get the negotiations going. But as of right now, I'm going to keep doing what I do, which is, work hard and just wait for my opportunity to shine again. So just a matter of, all Heyman and, my team and us, getting together and negotiating.
And you talked there about the dedication that you've got for boxing. Obviously, you mentioned you're massive, really, for Super-Bantamweight. You're 5'9". Even in non-title fights, you still make weight. I mean, you might come in just like half a pound over the limit when you don't even need to make 122. But just looking at that, it tells me you must live a seriously dedicated life. I'm sure you must eat clean, and you probably don't have many days outside of the gym.
Oh, yes, sir, of course. That's we got to show him that, I'm for real and that I'm not, I take this seriously and I'm not here to mess around. And, this is my life. Basically boxing has been my life since I was a little kid, and now I'm living my dreams. My dream became a reality this Saturday, and I don't plan on stopping. If anything, this motivated me more to work hard at the gym, to go more rounds and, dedicate myself a little bit more. But, of course, I'm ready to for that real world title belt.
And I want to ask you also, Brandon, have you managed to spar some big name fighters over the years, perhaps since you've turned pro? What are some of the guys that you've been in there with sparring in the gym?
Well, when I was training with Joe Diaz, I was sparring Diego de la Hoya. I was sparring Cesar. I forgot his name. He was another prospect. He rest in peace. He passed away in a car crash. I was sparring, a lot of prospects from Joe's gym, and what's it called? They give me a lot of good work, and now here in Texas, where I train with my father, I really don't. There's not a lot of big names, but there's a lot of real good talent here in the Valley that they help me work. But definitely, I'm gonna need to find that world class level sparring that I need for if I end up fighting the champion or whoever wins from TJ and Danny. So yes.
And I want to ask you this one, Brandon. Do you watch boxing as well as compete in it? Because your older brother Omar barely watches any fights. I mean, a big massive fight will happen. Like I think it was Pacquiao Broner. You know, two guys that he's basically fighting in their weight class. He's been linked with Broner. And I remember saying to him, Omar, did you watch the fight? And straight away he just says, nope. He doesn't even watch these fights. Do you watch the fights?
I'm honestly, no, like not really fights. It'll probably be fights that, you know, are probably really big. If you know, my dad or one of my friends invite me out to go watch it, I'll probably watch it. But other than that, either I'm always at the gym, I come out late, or, you know, I'm busy doing something else. So it's not that it doesn't interest me or anything. It's just that, you know, I do it every day. And sometimes I just forget about it, or I don't have the time of day, you know, to watch the fight. But obviously, of course, when I get on social media, I see little clips of them fighting and stuff like that. So, I mean, I don't miss out on it, but I just certainly not like interested in watching it, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that's better than Omar. Like I say, he barely watches anything. You know, you've got your older brother Omar, an undefeated former world champion himself, keeping a close eye on you. Is that a good or bad thing, Brandon? Because he's quite. I think sometimes he's quite harsh, really, when he speaks about you. Sometimes he doesn't really give you the credit you deserve, I feel.
Oh yes, sir. No, you know, I love my older brother, and if anything, that motivates me more because I'm harder on myself. If you think he's hard on me, I'm harder on myself. So, you know, it's good to have someone that agrees with me, not, you know, people that tell me, oh, you look good, even though me deep down inside I know I could have done better. And, you know, there's always room to improve. So, no, you know, I appreciate my brother for the help. And if anything, it's for the better, you know. He's real experienced in the ring. He obviously has more experience than me, amateur-wise and professional-wise. So, you know, I look up to my brother a lot. So, him telling me that, you know, I need to work on some things, you know, I really pay attention, and, you know, he's someone that I look up to, so yeah.
No, it's great to hear that you've got that relationship. I remember when Omar was on the show probably a couple of months ago, we were talking about your fight, I'm sure. I think it was the win over Flores. And I said to him, it was a brilliant performance by Brandon, Omar. Was it a proud brother moment for you? And he kind of said, yeah, it was, but don't tell him I said that. You know, he's very careful with the compliments for you. But no, it's brilliant. You know, he tells it as it is. You're coming off 6 knockouts in a row now. I mean, you know, you were kind of being compared a little bit, probably a little bit unfairly, but you were being compared with the likes of Diego De La Hoya when you was training under Joel Diaz. But you seem to be a guy that's kind of outshining the rest of those types of guys at the minute with these knockouts back to back. I'm sure you're enjoying everything at the minute in your career.
Oh, yes, sir. Of course, you know, we all have different styles. You know, Diego has a really nice polished styles. A lot of guys my weight class, they're real polished and everything, but I just feel like I just have that Mexican rugged warrior style that, you know, is like you said, you know, seek and destroy, and the power that I have with my both hands, you know, really helps my style because there's no point in having my style if I know I don't have power, if I know I'm not going to hurt my opponents. But, you know, I know people say I have a long reach and I should use it, but I don't know. It's just I always fall back to my style, and I know I need to polish it a little bit more and box a little bit more. But you know, I don't know. That's just my style. That's just my way of fighting, and that's my way of breaking down guys. But I do plan on you know, polishing it and, you know, work a little bit more on my defense, my footwork. You know, a bunch of things that you know I could do better that I definitely want to work on.
No, that's very honest of you to say. I mean, you know, you don't be too hard on yourself. You're doing some amazing things. You know, you're a big guy for the weight. You've got the power in both hands, like you say. The other night when I watched your fight, I see you were switching a lot. You know, you're a complete nightmare for so many boxers. I mean, I can see you really going all the way and causing many guys problems. The final couple of questions I've got for you, Brandon, before I let you go, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot a little bit here. Who would you say is your favourite fighter from the UK. It can be of any era. I'm not expecting you to be a boxing historian to throw a name out of a guy that retired 60 years ago, but who's the kind of guy that comes to your mind when I say your favourite UK fighter?
UK fighter? I mean, I don't really think I have a favorite US fighter, to be honest. I don't know. I don't really know. I don't really know a lot of
No, that's fine.
UK boxers besides Anthony Joshua and probably Prince.
Yeah, Prince.
But besides that, it'll probably be, Mexican fighters like, Juan Manuel Marquez and, maybe my older brother as well. I've always looked up to him. But no, I don't know. I don't really know any much UK fighters. I barely watch boxing myself, so yeah.
You guys you're probably the best boxers that don't really watch boxing. And finally, Brandon, where can people follow you on social media? You're on Twitter and Instagram, right? Please give out your handles so people can follow you.
Oh yes, sir. Of course. On Twitter at Brandon Lee Fig, and on Instagram Brandon Figueroa 101. They can follow me there. I'm trying to be a little bit more active on social media. I'm trying my best, but it's because of, I get distracted by, I'm always working out every day, and sometimes I don't have the energy to, pull out my phone and record what I'm doing and stuff like that. But definitely, yeah, they can follow me there and, see what I'm up to, and yeah.
And just repeat that for me one more time, the handles, Brandon. You said it a little bit too fast for me to understand.
Okay. On Twitter at Brandon Lee Fig, Fig at the end, and on Instagram Brandon Figueroa 101 on Instagram.
Excellent. Okay, perfect. Brandon, I want to say it's been a real pleasure having you on the show, my friend. Congrats once again on the win. Keep winning, and I'm sure that we'll speak again very soon.
Yes, sir. Of course. Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Okay, and this concludes episode 184 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Ayaz Sumra has been Ayaz Sumra. A massive thank you to our two guests on this week's show, the undefeated and delightful Selina Barrios and the undefeated and spiteful Brandon Figueroa. Here's a fact for you, though. Both of our guests, this is a complete accident by the way, but both of our guests from this week's show are from Texas. Both of them are undefeated. Both of them have got siblings that box, and both of their siblings are also undefeated. I really do love an accidental fact like that. There has been some news develop whilst we've been recording the show. Joe Joyce has actually signed a promotional contract with Frank Warren. That should be interesting. Obviously, that heavyweight stable's growing a little bit now. He's got the likes of Daniel Dubois and Nathan Gorman in that stable as well. WBA middleweight world champion Robert Brandt, he will be defending his title against Ryota Murata, the man that he actually beat for the title back in October. The rematch is set to take place on July 12th in Japan, and I'm guessing Murata's promoters must have been paying a real bomb for Brandt to go over there and defend his title. In other news, Golovkin has decided to split with his long-term trainer Abel Sanchez after 9 years. That's quite unfortunate, to be honest. Gennady will hopefully find a new trainer pretty quickly because his fight is only 6 weeks away now. The Prediction League currently stands at you, the listeners, on 95 points, and Ayaz is right behind on 94 points. It is very, very close. There are another 3 points up for grabs this weekend because once again, the listeners and Ayaz have disagreed on every single prediction. 2 weeks running now. It is exciting, but that is about everything. Thank you all for tuning into this week's podcast. Thank you all for listening. Have a great weekend, and we shall see you again next week.